everything, legit. The Nimi Mehta podcast. We are backstage right now at Sharjah Book Festival 2019. Mark Manson, thank you so much for your time. We both just came off stage. You gave an incredible keynote, which I think really resonated with a lot of people. There were so many questions out there that people had for you. I know you're flying out tonight, 3 a.m. flight. You are a man under demand. And I, first of all, just want to start off by saying how much of an impact that your books and generally your internet footprint, I'd like to call it, everything that I looked up on has had such a resonation with me because, well, first of all, I love swearing. I'm going to be honest. I love it. I think that people shouldn't shy away from it.
Sure.
It's a way of expressing. But can you just first of all talk about the blog? You started off with a blog. Like you said, you had absolutely no idea that it was going to lead to this.
Yep.
What was the thought behind it? And then when it finally struck to a point of a book, how did that happen? What was the thought process?
I started blogging in 2008 and I never really thought it was going to go anywhere. And kind of the way I describe it is that I started an internet business and I blogged to support the internet business. And what it took me about 3 or 4 years to discover was that I was kind of bad at internet business, but I was really good at blogging.
Yeah.
And so about 3 years into it, I'm like, oh, maybe I should just blog more and stop trying to do all this other stuff. And that's what I did. And that's when the audience really started to take off. And then things really blew up around 2013, 2014, started getting millions of people each month. And it just seemed the logical next step was to kind of encapsulate everything into a book.
So let's talk about how then the internet brought you to this stage, but also you talk about information overload, the 21st century. How do we kind of decipher what's going on right now? Because we are constantly in one zone at the moment. So how do you, as an individual, kind of take yourself away from that world, which is such a prominent part of who you are as well?
Yeah. I one thing I started doing this year is I stopped reading news. Because I trust that if something's important enough, I'll hear about it.
Yeah.
And then when I do hear about something, and if I decide I want to learn more about that, what I'll do is I'll go find some sort of like long form content about it. So either a book or a really long, 30, 40 page article. Because it's so easy to get sucked into the spin cycle of just clicking on everything that's coming through your feed. And most of that, I call it empty calories of information. Like it's satisfying, like you feel like you're learning something and doing something, but really you're not getting any nutritious value out of it. So I've kind of cut all the empty calories out of my information diet and try to focus on like larger, healthier sources.
Let's talk about one thing that you spoke about in your presentation, which was loving the association to pain, to certain types of pain. Now, when you spoke about how you used to want to be a musician and you played that jazz guitar and you kind of just weren't enjoying it anymore. I used to be a professional tennis player growing up, and I all of a sudden just hated what I was doing. I hated it. You said you haven't picked up a guitar in years. I haven't picked up a tennis racket in years. How do you learn to love that pain, which you kind of relate to trauma, which you kind of just never want to go back to, but it was such a prominent part of your life?
I don't know if you get to choose what pain you love. I think sometimes it's just chosen for you. I toned down the talk a little bit for here, but what that slide originally said is it said, what kind of masochist are you? Because I think all of us have a little bit of a masochistic part of ourselves. And we all have some sort of pain that we secretly like really get excited about.
Yeah.
And that's the sweet spot. Like that's where we should be focusing. And so for me, it's just music wasn't that. And the more I tried to make it that, the worse I felt. Whereas with writing, it's been the opposite. Writing, I wrote my whole life not even realizing I was writing. Because it just felt so natural and pleasant. We all have that one thing in our life that feels natural and pleasant to us that most people can't stand. And so it's like, look for that because that's probably where you should be.
And don't focus on that horrible trauma that you kind of went through. No, forget it.
It's over for a reason.
Yeah. Now, I know you're in a rush. You got a signing to come up. What is coming from Mark Manson soon? I mean, I hear the name Will Smith hanging about. Not a big deal, but what's going on with that?
No big deal. So I'm working with Will Smith on his memoirs. It's part memoir, part life advice. I'm about halfway through the first draft of that book, and it's a joy. Like he's such a cool guy, and it's so fun, and it's such an honor to like be able to help him share his life with everybody. I think there's going to be a lot of things in this book that are going to blow people with. A lot of things that people don't know about him. People are going to be surprised about him. And I'm super excited.
One to watch then, one to come.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Mark Manson. Have an incredible rest of the few hours that you have left in the UAE. And thank you for your time. It's been an honor.